Hey scrapbook friends, it's Nicole and I'm here with a quick card idea that I wanted to share with you. And this is a card that I made for my guests at my National Scrapbook Day this past weekend. And it turned out so cute that I thought I would show you how you can make your own, because it's just a nice general purpose card using some basic Creative Memories tools, and hopefully you'll have people that you can share it with as well. So I did use the a card from the Creative Memories blank card kit. This is an A2 size card. This comes with 12 cards and envelopes, but you can also make your own base. You just need an A2 size card, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 folded. So that's what we're going to start with as our base. We're also going to use a piece of charcoal cardstock for the background. We're going to punch our Bumblebee out of black shimmer. We're going to cut a little body for the bee out of goldenrod. And then the honeycombs we're going to cut out of the autumn hay shimmer. And of course you can use other papers or other colors if you prefer. This is just what I used for mine, and I thought it turned out really cute. The other thing you're going to need is a title. You may have, if you're a stamper, you may have something that you can stamp. I just printed this on my computer. I went online and I found a font that I liked and I typed this up. I don't remember what size the font is. I just made it so that it was like 3 inches across and that it would fit in about a 3/4 inch or a 1/2 inch little strip to make a banner. So I do want to tell you about a website that I was introduced to recently that I absolutely love. It will show you any font that is on your computer or your phone and let you see what your text is going to look like in that font. It's wordmark.it. Wordmark.it. You're going to love this site. Anything you need to print out, if you want to know what it's going to look like before you type it in, you can see what it's going to look like on there. I've spent so many hours typing, changing the font till I find the font that I want. But this Wordmark IT, love it. Try it out. I would love to hear what you think. So that's what I used for this, to make these little sayings to put on my card. So I'm starting with my blank card base. Then I'm going to do the charcoal paper. And since my card base is a standard 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, I want there to be a little white border around my card. So I'm going to cut my paper to 4 by 5 1/4. Okay, so just a 1/4 inch smaller than my card base. And this again is something you could do. You could do the same, the same size if you want. If you have a different size card base, I know that like at Hobby Lobby, they sell some little pre-made blank cards that are smaller. Just measure the size of your card base and cut your charcoal piece to be just a 1/4 inch smaller. So that gives you that little 1/8 inch border. Next, we're going to punch out the honeycombs. And so we're going to use the Embossed Hexagon punch. And one of the reasons I wanted to use this punch was to teach you a little trick about the hexagon punches. If I take this punch and I just punch it through one time, you don't really see the hexagon very well. The hexagon is there. It's this because it's on cardstock. But people have been asking, how come mine doesn't do the hexagon? So when you use one of these embossed punches, we've had several that have the embossing. After you punch the first time, before you move or lift up your punch, I like to punch down and then kind of bounce it a couple of times to put that embossing in there. So now you can see that it's got that embossing a lot more visible than it did on the first one, where the embossing kind of gets lost. So we're going to want 3 of these. We're going to punch, bounce, punch, bounce. And that's going to give us our 3 little hexagons to be our our little honeycomb behind. And you could, of course, do more. If you wanted to, you know, do more hexagons, make your hexagon background more filled out, that would be fine too. Now we're going to punch the honey, or the bee punch. I do think this one did sell out. The National Scrapbook Day theme did kind of revolve around bees, which made for some really cute decorations and clothing and stuff. But it will be back. It'll be back in September, or you can ask your advisor. Perhaps they have it. Maybe they would be willing to punch you out a couple of little bees. We're going to use the black shimmer. And I'm going to just punch out. I'm just going to punch out one. I mean, when I made these for my scrapbook day, of course, I had to punch out more than that. And then you're going to need a little piece of yellow to be the bee's body. You can just freehand that. That's what's easier for me. The leaf, the 5-leaf punch, supposedly this leaf is almost the right size to fill in the bee's body. The double balloon punch, play with your other punches. But what I like to do is just take my negative space here. Let's see, I need a pencil. So I'm just going to kind of take this negative space of the bee's body and just kind of draw a little circle and then just cut it out. And I'm going to cut inside that space because it doesn't need to be so big. But this is great for just a tiny little scrap of cardstock. And if you wanted to fill in the wings, if you had some vellum or something, you could fill in the wings with vellum. But I didn't have any vellum, so I'm just filling in the bee's body. And then I'm going to take my repositionable tape and just go over the body and stick this on. So you see, it doesn't really look that pretty, you know, from the back, because I just kind of freehand cut. But when you look at the front of that bee, it just fills in his little bumblebee butt right there. And then this little punch is exactly the right size for our mini foam squares. I know when I talk to people about the foam squares, we all seem to like the bigger size more and use those first. And so sometimes it's nice for the little tiny ones to get some love. So I put one on his head. I put one in the middle of his body and one all the way down at the bottom. So I've got my 3 little foam squares. So we're going to lift him up off the card. And then I'm going to take my printed out titles. You could, like I say, absolutely, you know, stamp this, put a happy birthday, whatever saying you want to put. And I just positioned it so that the top of the font was just right on this silver line. I didn't measure because you guys know me and measuring. And then again, the bottom of the font, those little Y's that poke down, I put those just right there on the edge and cut this. And I trimmed the edge because I don't, you know, my card is only 4 1/4 or 4 inches wide now. So I think I'm going to cut this down to more like 3 1/2. Maybe we'll go a little longer than 3 1/2. And then I'm just going to put a little flag. And the way I like to do flags for something like this, I like to just eyeball the middle and cut a line up in the middle. And then I go from the corner to the end of that line and make my little banner section. You can also fold it and trim it, but too many times I've cut the wrong direction from the fold. So for me, to cut the line and just go in is the way it works best for me. All right, and now all we have left is assembly. So I'm going to use regular tape runner. I always like to use regular tape runner on cards because they're going to be handled. And the repositionable, I mean, the things that make it great is that it can be repositioned, but you don't want it to come off in the mail. And then to center my honeycomb, what I did is I lined this up with my cutting mat. I actually did it before I attached the card to the base. So I've centered this now. You can see I've lined up the edges of the card. And then I took one of my honeycombs and I found the point and I just kind of pulled it down about 1/2 inch from the top, and I just lined it up with the line on my cutting mat, and then put the other 2 on you just kind of position these lines in conjunction with each other. And I did kind of have to play with them a little bit to make sure that I liked the way they were positioned. Oh, it looks like I wasn't quite straight. So even though I used regular tape runner, you do still have a little bit of grace period to move things around. So just move your honeycomb around. Like I say, you could absolutely go, you know, maybe do this before you cut the piece or before you put it on the card, but you could absolutely put more honeycomb on here. Then I'm going to pop the backing off the foam squares and put our little bee kind of in the middle. And finally take my little word strip and just put that right on there. So there you go, a super cute all-purpose friend card that you could send to anybody that might, you know, need a little pick-me-up. Anyone you want to, you know, brighten their day. I think there's nothing like getting a card in the mail from someone to brighten your day. So I hope that you will enjoy making this card. Oh, I did want to say, I know some people were asked, the name of the font that I did use for my title is called Blink Script. And I think that it's probably from dafont.com, but that was this font, Blink Script. But you can use any font you want. Just pick a font that you have, something that you like that's fun, and you too can make this quick friendship greeting card using just a couple of basic CM punches, and they go together really quick. So I hope that you will like this card, that you will make it, and that the people that you send it to will be happy, because we want us to all be happy. All right. Thanks very much. Happy scrapbooking, or I guess happy card making.